Well, it's been over a week now since Super Bowl Sunday. Let's revisit the call that got everyone talking, and that was the James Bradberry hold, or was it not a hold controversy. Well, let's get into it. And I think, there's more angles out now than there was right when the Super Bowl happened, so that helps. But first, let's just remind ourselves of what does the rule actually say? What is in the NFL rulebook? Well, Rule 12, Article 6, defensive holding is a foul for defensive holding if a defensive player tackles or holds any opponent for other than a runner, except as permitted in Article 5, which is not relevant to this scenario. So, what is a hold? When you hold someone. Okay, well, I guess that doesn't help us out too much. Bit of a circular definition there, but that's what we have. That's what we know. A holding is you can't hold someone. Although one distinction I should make is that a hold is different than pass interference. In pass interference, you have to significantly hinder your opponent's ability to catch the football. In holding, that is not a article of it. That is not a section of it. It does not have to hinder your opponent's ability to catch the football, and it does not have to be significant. All you have to do is hold. A hold in general is a penalty, and if they see it, they can call it. I'm going to show this angle. This is the best angle that we didn't see in the, live. Apparently, they showed it at the Super Bowl, and so people at the Super Bowl understood why it was a penalty, but people watching at home were very confused. That's kind of an interesting thing, but just watch what happens. Look, Mahomes takes a snap, obviously, throws it to, gets ready to throw it to Smith-Schuster, but you see, on the screen, definitely Bradberry grabs a handful of jersey. Now, again, is this a hold? Well, by definition, yes. By definition, this is a hold. This is something that they can call. Going over here, again, showing the other angle. How much did it affect Smith-Schuster? I think it affected him some. I don't know how much, but I do think it affected him some. Look, you're going to see that Bradberry, again, holds him, slows Smith-Schuster down a little bit. How big of a deal is it? That remains to be seen. That is a discussion. Should it have been called in this moment? I've always been a believer in if it's a penalty in the first quarter, it's a penalty at the end of the fourth quarter. A penalty is a penalty. Sure, it's not as fun from a viewer's perspective if the game, kind of ends on a penalty like it did here. It's more fun when it ends on a play, but doesn't matter. You gotta let the players play, and people tend to say, don't call the penalties, let the players play. But at the same time, if you don't call a penalty like this, that's not letting the players play. Because what if Smith-Schuster just barely didn't catch the football? Well, then that hold would have been the difference in them, getting a touchdown versus not getting a touchdown, and maybe it's a bad call that cost the Chiefs in that scenario. I think it's reasonable to say that, given the way the game has gone, that, there were some missed calls earlier. It felt like they weren't throwing a lot of flags earlier when I did think there was opportunities where they potentially could have. So maybe when you've already set the tone, Bradberry got away with a hold earlier on in the game that was pretty egregious. So maybe he just thought they weren't going to call anything. And at that point, you want the players to know what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. If Bradberry thought that was going to be allowed and wasn't going to be a penalty, and then, it turns out it was called on him, that is an unfortunate break for Philadelphia. But at the end of the day, one take that I heard that I just completely agree with is it's just a mistake to hold in that situation anyway. A penalty is the worst thing that can happen. A touchdown is okay. The one thing you don't want is a first down. And so a hold is much worse than getting burned for a touchdown. Do not get burned for a touchdown. Obviously, you want to hold them to 3. I get it. But, again, by definition, with the rule book, it was a penalty. I think it's hard to complain, again, seeing the angles we've seen now, which, again, broadcast did not do a great job at showing the angles in real time. They didn't show the hold very well, and also, Greg Olsen was very much saying, that's not a hold, that's not a penalty. It is. It's on the lighter side for sure, but it is by definition a penalty. A lot of times when refs see a jersey grab, they throw the flag. And while we can say they let him play earlier, it's totally possible they just missed those penalties too. That's the other thing. It's totally possible they just missed those and now saw this one. Refs don't see everything that happens on a football field. I don't know. It's an interesting discussion. It's definitely an interesting topic, but as a whole, those are kind of my thoughts on it. Now that we have the whole, every little detail, outrage is fun, but I think the reality is that it was, a controversial decision, but it was a hold. The question is just, do you throw the flag there? Which I think, you can have good faith arguments on either side, but that's my opinion on it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.